As a mother, a heartbroken mother, a mother that's full of anger, rage, questions why.
A heartbroken mother speaking outside of court today as 4 teens were charged in the murder of her daughter.
Prosecutors alleging the young officer was gunned down as part of a deadly crime spree.
Nate Rogers is live tonight with the latest. Nate.
Yeah, that's right, Corey and Dawn. A lot of new details from authorities. Police confirmed that Preston was in uniform before she was shot and killed. Her service weapon was also stolen and sold, yet to be recovered. She was one of 6 victims, we're told, robbed allegedly by the same crew over the weekend. Also, a stolen Kia used in this crime was later set on fire.
I felt sorry for them because nobody obviously didn't pour into them. Nobody told them that they were loved. Nobody told them that you can do anything like I constantly preach to my daughters.
Court documents say the 16-year-old called a friend same day asking if he'd seen the news about a police officer being killed. Frazier saying, quote, that was his work.
Anytime you can shoot somebody and say, that was my work, what kind of human would say that about another human being?
Frazier told a friend his crew was going to rob Preston, but she shot at them, and one of the guys shot back, killing her. Prosecutors say that friend alerted police, and with detectives listening in, Frazier now making more admissions before being identified to authorities by his mother.
The silence of a Chicago night is a rare and deceptive thing. On May 6, 2023, in the Avalon Park neighborhood, it felt especially thick. A late-night breeze, warm with the promise of summer, rustled through the trees, a soft, hushed sound. The streetlights cast a dim, amber glow on the pavement, painting the familiar path to a front door. For Officer Aréanah Preston, at 24 years old, this was the final leg of her journey home. She was off duty, but her uniform was a second skin. It was the uniform of her calling, a symbol of the promise she had made to protect and serve. At just 5'3" and around 100 pounds, she was a small figure in a big city, but the dedication in her heart was immeasurable. As she approached her home at 1:40 a.m., the weight of her police gear felt like a comforting embrace, the kind of reassurance that comes from a job well done. She had a long shift behind her and a promising future ahead. A future with her twin siblings and her loving parents. A future that included a master's degree from Loyola University and an ambitious plan to join the FBI. The comforting glow of her front porch beckoned. But the night had other plans. The silence was suddenly shattered, not by a siren, but by the jarring sound of footsteps on the pavement. The footsteps were too fast, too many. From the shadows of the street emerged 4 figures. They were teenagers, but they were not just kids. They were a group on a violent crime spree. Aréanah's mind, trained for situational awareness, instantly shifted from off-duty to on alert. A sudden demand for money, a flash of metal. It was a robbery. But Aréanah Preston wasn't just a victim. She was a police officer. She was a woman who had dedicated her life to justice. And in her eyes, in that dark moment, there was no fear, only defiance. She refused to yield. The confrontation was brutal. The struggle was a whirlwind of movement and desperation in the quiet street. Then, the silence was ripped apart by the sound of gunfire. A single shot. Then another. Aréanah was hit twice, once in the face and once in the neck. Her small body reeled from the impact. But even as her lifeblood began to ebb, her training and courage took over. With her last reserves of strength, she returned fire at her assailants. It was a final, desperate act of bravery against the darkness. The teenagers, rattled and panicked, stole her gun and fled, leaving her mortally wounded on the cold pavement. The terrifying sound of their escape was followed by a silence far more profound than the one they had broken. A silence that was a testament to the tragic loss of a brilliant life. What does it say about our world when the very people who promise to protect us are not safe in the sanctity of their own homes? What do we do when a master's degree, a brilliant mind, and an unwavering commitment to public service are not enough to save a life? Welcome to Say Her Name, a space where we refuse to let these questions go unanswered. We tell the stories of Black women whose lives were cut short, whose cases often fade from the headlines. We are here to ensure their legacies are not forgotten and that their names are remembered not just in sorrow, but as a catalyst for change. Their lives mattered, their dreams mattered, and their stories deserve to be told. Today, we honor the memory of Officer Aréanah Preston. Her story is a heartbreaking example of a life of promise extinguished too soon, but it is also an inspiring testament to dedication, courage, and a relentless pursuit of justice. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments below.
Here's another year around the sun, my bitches.
You play too much.
Aréanah Preston was a daughter first. The youngest of three, born just minutes after her twin brother, she was the family's bright, determined anchor. Her mother often said Aréanah was a force of nature in a small package, a person who would give her last to anyone in need. This wasn't just a mother's loving hyperbole. It was the truth. It was the truth of a girl who, at 10 years old, used her allowance to buy lunch for a classmate who had none. It was the truth of a young woman who, after a long shift, would still find the energy to help a neighbor carry groceries. Her home was a sanctuary, filled with laughter and the unwavering support of her parents and twin siblings. She was the one who mediated sibling squabbles, the one who cooked her mother's favorite meal after a tough day, the one her brother confided in when he needed advice. This foundation of love and community was the bedrock of who she was, a testament to a life lived not for herself, but for others. From this deep well of love and generosity, Aréanah forged her path. Her ambition was not for glory or power, but for purpose. She saw the world's injustices and chose to confront them head-on. This desire led her to the Chicago Police Department, where, for 3 years, she served as a small but mighty presence on the streets she had grown up on. Her size was often the first thing people noticed, but her spirit was what they remembered. She carried herself with an air of confidence that belied her small stature, a quiet authority that earned the respect of her colleagues and the trust of her community. Aréanah was not a caricature of a cop. She was a thoughtful, compassionate officer who understood that true justice often begins with a conversation, not a confrontation. Her colleagues knew her as brave, smart, outgoing, witty, and fiercely loyal. She was the one who could diffuse a tense situation with a well-timed, witty remark, and the one who would stand by a partner no matter the cost. She embodied the modern police officer, compassionate and empathetic, but with an unshakable spine of courage. During a chaotic domestic dispute call in a low-income apartment complex, a call that could have easily turned violent, Aréanah didn't just rush in with her hand on her weapon. She took a deep breath, noticed a small child huddled in a corner, and knelt down to talk to him. Her calm voice and patient demeanor helped de-escalate the situation, allowing her and her partner to resolve the conflict without a single use of force. She had a way of seeing the human behind the headline, the person behind the problem, and that was her superpower. Aréanah's ambitions soared far beyond her 3 years on the force. She saw her work in the Chicago Police Department not as a destination, but as a stepping stone. Her ultimate goal was to join the FBI, where she believed she could tackle larger-scale injustices and make an even greater impact. She was meticulously preparing for this next chapter of her life, and her dedication was a sight to behold. She was a woman who balanced the demanding and unpredictable schedule of a police officer with the rigorous requirements of academia. Her criminal justice master's degree from Loyola University Chicago was the culmination of countless late nights of studying after long shifts. It was the intellectual foundation for the career she was building, a testament to her brilliant mind and her determined spirit. She was set to walk across the stage and receive that degree, a public acknowledgement of her hard work. Tragically, it was awarded to her posthumously, a bittersweet moment of pride and immense sorrow for her family. Even in death, Aréanah's legacy continued to unfold, a testament to her lasting impact. The Peace for Preston Foundation was born from her family's determination to carry on her work. It's a foundation built on the very principles she lived by: service, protection, and inspiration. The foundation supports youth and communities in Chicago, providing resources and mentorship to guide at-risk youth toward positive paths. It is a living, breathing testament to her life's purpose, a monument built not of stone, but of love and action. On the night of May 6, 2023, while Aréanah was finishing her shift and heading home, for young men, Trevor Breland, Joseph Brooks, Jaquan Buchanan, and Jalen Frazier, were in a stolen car, their night a chaotic blur of armed robberies and escalating violence. They were a force of pure destruction, moving through the city with a reckless disregard for the lives they were terrifying and the law they were breaking. They were a random, destructive storm, and Aréanah was a light of hope heading home from her work. The two paths, so different in their purpose and so opposed in their intent, were unknowingly on a collision course. One path was of a life of service just beginning, the other, a path of violence, finally reaching its inevitable and tragic destination. The night of May 6, 2023, was a descent into madness for a group of young men who had already chosen a path of escalating violence. Trevor Breland, Joseph Brooks, Jaquan Buchanan, and 16-year-old Jalen Frazier were on a desperate, self-destructive mission, moving through the city in a stolen car like a shark in the water, looking for the next easy target. Their night began with a series of low-stakes crimes, an armed robbery here, a carjacking there. Each crime was a small step down a dark path, a test of their own recklessness. They were emboldened by the thrill of the chase, by the easy fear they instilled in their victims. By the time they entered the Avalon Park neighborhood, they were no longer nervous teenagers. They were a pack of predators, their senses heightened by adrenaline and their judgment clouded by a sense of invincibility. They cruised the quiet, tree-lined streets, their eyes scanning for a solitary figure, a moment of vulnerability. The city was their hunting ground, and they believed they were invisible. They abandoned the stolen car and, on foot, their movements were a silent promise of danger. They were a shadow that moved with sinister purpose. Aréanah's car, a black sedan, was the only one on the block, a sitting duck. They watched her as she pulled up to her home, her uniform a beacon in the darkness. To them, she wasn't a police officer, not a symbol of justice and authority. She was a target, a chance for one final, easy score. The irony of their decision to confront a police officer, however, was lost on them. Meanwhile, Aréanah was lost in the simple, mundane relief of a shift finally over. The weight of her equipment felt heavier now, not with the purpose of the day, but with the simple drag of exhaustion. She had just finished her shift, a routine that had become a rhythm of her life. Clocking out, driving home, and the final moments of quiet before her safe haven. She was in uniform, a testament to her dedication, but in her mind, she was just Aréanah, a young woman ready for a warm bed and the quiet comfort of her home. As she parked and got out of her car, her mind was already on the next day, the next step toward her dream of joining the FBI. She was thinking of her family, of her ambitious plans, not of the shadows. Her guard was down, not because she was naive, but because she was home. Her home was her sanctuary, her shield against the chaos of the city. The sound of footsteps behind her was the first crack in her reality. Her training took over, a reflex honed over 3 years on the force. But it was too late. Before she could fully turn, she was surrounded. The demand for money was a raw, guttural sound, a jarring intrusion on the quiet night. The glint of a gun barrel was a terrifying punctuation mark. In that moment, the world shrank to the size of her front porch. It was a confrontation she had prepared for, but never expected to face in her own driveway. The struggle was a desperate, chaotic blur. Aréanah, small in stature but immense in spirit, fought back with everything she had. She wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting for the principles she had sworn to uphold. She fought with the raw instinct of a survivor, and with the trained precision of an officer. Shots were fired. One struck her in the face, another in the neck. The pain was immediate and searing, a brutal shock to her system. But in her final moments, as her body began to fail her, her spirit remained unbroken. She reached for her own weapon, returning fire, a final act of courage that would later be hailed as a testament to her unyielding bravery. With Aréanah mortally wounded, the assailants panicked. They snatched her gun and scrambled back to their stolen vehicle. Their escape was frantic, a desperate flight from the horror they had just created. They abandoned the stolen car in a secluded alley and, in a chilling final act of desperation, set it on fire, a futile attempt to destroy the evidence that would ultimately lead to their capture. The flames illuminated the quiet Chicago night, a horrifying beacon of their crime. The final powerful image of the night was the sight of Officer Aréanah Preston, a brilliant and promising life extinguished, lying on the pavement just feet from the safety of her front door. The stolen car, now a raging inferno, burned brightly in the distance, a silent promise of the justice that was yet to come. The city, which had always been her home, had become her tomb. The silence that followed the gunfire was not absolute. It was a deafening vacuum where a heartbeat had been just moments before. In the blackness of the Avalon Park night, a small, bright red light began to pulse from Officer Aréanah Preston's wrist. Her Apple Watch, a piece of technology designed for health and convenience, had detected a sudden violent deceleration followed by a complete lack of movement. It registered a severe impact, interpreting it as a car crash, and without a prompt, it automatically placed an emergency 911 call. This was the first twist in the story, the most profound irony of the entire night. The city's official gunshot detection system, ShotSpotter, had picked up the shots at 1:42 a.m., but due to a backlog of alerts in that district, the dispatch was delayed. Aréanah's watch, a silent guardian in her final moments, bypassed the bureaucracy and placed an urgent, direct call for help at 2:02 a.m. It was a phantom alert for a crash that never happened, but it was enough to dispatch officers immediately to her location. They arrived to find her critically wounded, but still fighting. They worked on her, desperately attempting to save her life before rushing her to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where she tragically succumbed to her injuries. The Apple Watch's emergency call was not an accident. It was a final, desperate act of a life dedicated to saving others, a digital cry for help that ensured her last moments would not be in total solitude. The investigation that followed was a masterclass in meticulous police work, a relentless pursuit of justice for a fallen officer. It was a step-by-step breakdown of a night of chaos, with every moment leading to the inevitable. The detectives started with the most obvious trail, the suspect's crime spree that led them to Aréanah's doorstep. Trevor Breland, Joseph Brooks, Jaquan Buchanan, and Jalen Frazier were not phantom figures. They were a group of teenagers who had already left a trail of victims. Police interviewed victims of multiple armed robberies and a car theft that had occurred just before Aréanah's murder. The victims provided detailed descriptions of their assailants, and one crucial detail emerged. The suspects were in a stolen Dodge Avenger and, later, a stolen Kia. The detectives didn't have to rely solely on witness descriptions. The city of Chicago is a city of a million eyes. A vast network of surveillance cameras had captured the entire violent journey. The footage was painstakingly reviewed, frame by frame. It showed the stolen Dodge Avenger moving through different neighborhoods, stopping briefly for armed robberies, and then speeding away. The cameras caught them abandoning the Avenger and stealing the Kia. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to make out the suspects' dark clothing and their frantic, almost choreographed movements. The cameras also captured the final, chilling moments outside Aréanah's home. The footage was a silent, unblinking witness to the confrontation, the brief muzzle flashes from the gunshots, and the suspect's terrifying escape. The final act of arson, a plume of smoke and fire rising from the abandoned Kia, was a final, desperate attempt to erase their tracks. But it only served as a dramatic, undeniable marker of their guilt. The digital trail was just as revealing. Cell phone data, often a hidden witness, placed all four suspects' phones at the locations of every single crime they committed that night, including the exact coordinates of Aréanah's shooting. The police didn't have to rely on their confessions. The data created a comprehensive map of their criminal journey. This was the irrefutable truth, the kind of evidence that a jury would find impossible to deny. The suspects had tried to cover their tracks with face coverings and stolen cars, but they had left a digital breadcrumb trail that led directly to them. But the final crack in their carefully constructed facade came from an unexpected source: the women who had accompanied them on their earlier crime sprees. These individuals, some of whom were girlfriends or acquaintances of the suspects, were brought in for questioning. They were shown video and photo arrays, and one by one, their identifications confirmed the suspect's involvement. "Yes, that's Brooks, that's Buchanan, and that's Breland," they confirmed, their voices trembling with fear. One of the women, in a moment of panic, revealed a chilling detail. Jalen Frazier, the 16-year-old, had called a friend and admitted to the murder. "We were gonna rob a lady, but she was a cop and she fired back, so we shot her," he confessed. It was a raw, unscripted admission, a moment of unguarded honesty that would seal their fate. The police, acting with precision, arranged a controlled phone call between Frazier and his friend, and the young man made admissions directly to the authorities. The walls were closing in, and the suspects were now in a box of their own making. The arrests were a tense, hours-long operation that unfolded across the city. Jaquan Buchanan, perhaps the most cunning of the group, was the first to fall. He had tried to lay low at an ex-girlfriend's home, believing he was safe. But the police, armed with the witness identifications and his known associates, were a step ahead. He was arrested without a fight. His capture was the first domino to fall. Brooks and Breland, realizing the jig was up, barricaded themselves in a home, leading to an hours-long standoff. The Chicago Police Department, exercising a masterful display of patience and control, negotiated their surrender, and both men were taken into custody. The forensic evidence was the final nail in the coffin. Bullet casings recovered at the scene of the shooting were matched to a gun found during the arrests. IDs and credit cards from earlier robbery victims were found in the suspects' possession, concrete proof of their violent crime spree. The suspects had tried to steal Aréanah's life, to erase her from the world, but in their haste, they had left behind 1 million pieces of evidence that would ultimately seal their fate. In the interrogation room, faced with an overwhelming mountain of evidence, the cell phone data, the surveillance footage, the confessions from their friends and their own admissions, the 4 young men finally broke. Their initial lies and fabricated stories dissolved under the weight of the truth. They were charged with a comprehensive list of felonies that would ensure they spent the rest of their lives behind bars. First-degree murder, armed robbery, burglary, vehicle theft, possession of stolen items, and arson for burning the stolen car. The investigation was a powerful testament to the city's commitment to justice. It was a story of a modern police force using technology, meticulous detective work, and community trust to bring perpetrators of a heinous crime to justice. But the most chilling detail, the final twist in this tragic tale, was the motive itself. During their confession, one of the suspects revealed that after they had shot Aréanah, they ran away, but one of them returned. He returned not to offer aid, not out of remorse, but to steal her firearm. It was a final, depraved act of desecration, a chilling glimpse into the utter disregard for human life that drove them. The man who came back for the gun was Joseph Brooks. And in that moment, the police knew they weren't just dealing with desperate robbers, but with a level of cold-blooded cruelty that defied all understanding.
Young lady finna get her master's next week, and these young punks gonna shoot. We gotta do something about this shooting and killing.
One step closer to justice for a murdered off-duty officer.
Several people are in custody in connection with the young officer's gruesome death.
Nate Rogers is live with the latest. Nate.
Yeah, absolutely, Corey and Don. As you can see behind me, purple bunting is in place here outside of Area 2 where that officer has worked for the last 3 years or so. Sources have confirmed with Fox 32 that multiple persons of interest are being questioned by police. Right now, in this case, those persons of interest range in age from 16 to 18 years old. The officer's family has asked for privacy, as many Southside residents say they too are mourning this officer's death. A SWAT response in Auburn Gresham Sunday night. Neighbor Dorn Thornton heard officers negotiating with a person inside.
The building is surrounded, come out with your hands up. And I don't think he did it till 3:30.
The standoff lasting 6 hours after a man barricaded himself at a home here at 76 and Bishop. Sources say a gun was recovered. The man is among those being questioned in the death of 24-year-old Aréanah Preston.
My son, he said he's seen her quite a few times. He's like, oh, We got a police in the neighborhood. That's good to know.
Preston was shot multiple times walking into her home overnight Saturday at 81st and Blackstone. Multiple sources confirm it was indeed a robbery attempt. Authorities say she had just finished her work shift. According to reports, her Apple Watch alerted police of her heart rate dropping. A fellow officer found Preston laying on the ground and drove her to UFC, where she died. In a processional, her body then taken to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office.
I was walking my dog and people, come and hug and crying. And it's just sad.
She was on the force for just 3 years. Loyola University says Preston was set to graduate this coming Saturday with a master's degree from the law school.
Put the guns down. Pick up a Bible.
73-year-old Southsider Lavinia Fields not holding back, saying violent crime involving juveniles must cease.
Y'all dying quick enough. Why would you bother such a beautiful young lady trying to get her master's? It's not worth it. Go back to school, get an education, do something besides this shooting and killing. It hurts. It bleeds my heart.
The rapid arrests and the shocking confession brought a swift sense of justice to a city in mourning. But a conviction was not the end. It was the beginning of a legal battle that would unfold in the public eye. The trial of Trevor Breland, Joseph Brooks, Jaquan Buchanan, and Jalen Frazier was a somber and powerful affair. The prosecution presented the mountain of evidence, a narrative of a violent crime spree that ended in the brutal murder of a promising young police officer. The surveillance footage, cell phone data, and the chilling confession of Trevor Breland were all laid bare for the jury to see. Aréanah's parents, her twin siblings, and her colleagues from the Chicago Police Department filled the courtroom every day, a silent testament to the life that had been taken. In the end, there was no doubt. The jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts, a just and final sentence for the 4 young men who had taken a life with such casual cruelty. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, in this case, was swift and definitive, but it could never fill the void left by Aréanah. Her death was not just a tragic loss for her family and the police department. It was a profound blow to a city that had hoped to see her rise as a leader. Aréanah Preston's story, however, transcends the courtroom and the headlines. Her life and death serve as a stark and painful case study for a wider, more urgent conversation about violence and its root causes. The 4 teenagers who ended her life were not hardened criminals. They were young men on a destructive path, a path that so many young people are on. This raises critical questions about our communities and the systems that are failing them. The suspects were involved in a crime spree of increasing violence, highlighting a critical point. Early intervention is key. We cannot wait until a car is stolen or a life is taken. We must invest in community programs that provide at-risk youth with education, employment opportunities, and emotional support. These programs can serve as a lifeline, redirecting young lives before they are consumed by a cycle of violence. They can teach conflict resolution, foster empathy, and provide the tools needed to build a positive future. Aréanah's murder also exposed the immense risks that police officers face every day. For a woman like her, who was just 5'3" and 100 pounds, her bravery was not a matter of size but of spirit. Her actions in returning fire, even while critically wounded, were a testament to her training and courage. This tragedy calls for enhanced training in situational awareness and threat detection for all officers, especially those who work alone or in high-risk areas. Furthermore, the emotional toll of policing is immense, and providing accessible mental health resources and support is crucial for building and maintaining resilience. The accessibility of firearms was a central factor in Aréanah's murder. The suspects were armed teenagers who had no right to own or possess guns. This reality underscores the need for strengthening gun laws, enforcing regulations, and working to stop the flow of illegal guns into our communities. Community cooperation with law enforcement is vital in limiting illegal gun trafficking and removing firearms from the hands of those who would use them for violence. Aréanah embodied the very best of community policing. Her career was not just about making arrests but about building trust and serving as a mentor and role model. Her death is a painful reminder that the bond between police and the communities they serve is a two-way street. Building trust is a long and difficult process, but it is vital. When communities trust their police, they are more willing to provide information that can prevent crimes and lead to the quick apprehension of suspects. Officer Aréanah Preston's life was not defined by her death. She was a woman of immense promise and unshakable dedication. Her legacy lives on through the foundation her family established in her name, the Peace for Preston Foundation, which works to support youth and communities in Chicago. It is a testament to the belief that even in the face of such profound loss, hope can still be found. Her posthumously awarded master's degree is a final, powerful symbol of her commitment to education and her unwavering ambition. Her story is a stark reminder of the human cost behind the headlines and the necessity of comprehensive, compassionate approaches to violence prevention. It honors Aréanah not just for her sacrifice, but for her potential to inspire change that will outlive her. If you believe that the stories of Black women deserve to be told and their legacies honored, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support ensures that Aréanah Preston, and so many others, are never forgotten.